If you're enjoying this podcast from us here at Which, then why not become a Which member? Right now, we've got a special offer, especially for podcast listeners, meaning you can choose any of our 3 membership tiers for 50% off the usual price. Starting at just £39.50 for a full year, you can get Which magazine delivered direct to your door. For the same price, you could also choose a digital Which subscription, giving you access to all of our product reviews, the Which app, and the digital edition of Which magazine. What's more, you'll also be able to use the Ask Which service for personalised one-to-one buying advice. Or why not get a full access Which subscription for just £49.50 for a full year? Don't forget, that's 50% off the usual price. To join Which or to find out more, just head to which.co.uk/podcast offer. That's which.co.uk/podcast offer, or click the link in the description for today's podcast for 50% off a Which annual subscription.
If you're looking at jetting off in the next few months, you might be tempted by airport meet and greet parking. But a new Which investigation has uncovered a murky world of high-speed joyrides, petty theft, and damaged cars. This is the Get Answers podcast.
When life gives you questions, Which? Get Answers.
Now, welcome to the show. We're starting off with some kind of bad news and good news here. My co-host Grace has headed off to Departures New, so I am flying solo. But to compensate, the good news is you'll be getting twice as much of me, as we'll be releasing new episodes every single week through till Christmas. We'll be bringing you a deeper dive into some exclusive Which investigative journalism, including how we uncovered an international AI scam and the smart home gadgets that take just too much of your personal data. So I'm joined today by Guy Hobbs from the Which travel team. Guy, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. Now, this is a really good James Bond-esque, tracking, exciting, high-tech investigation. It really is quite cool. But first, can you explain, how you came to investigate airport parking, and what have you heard from our members about this?
Yeah, well, ever since the pandemic ended, there's been this huge demand for holidays. And as a result, the price of everything has gone up, as you know, but particularly airport parking. It's gone up 38% since 2019, and that's way above inflation.
You're talking hundreds of pounds. It's not like it's gone up from £10 to 15.
Yeah, exactly. If you were to turn up at Heathrow Airport at their short stay parking without having pre-booked, you'd be looking at more than £600 for a week's parking. It's crazy money. And the problem really is that the demand is outstripping supply. The airports just couldn't cope if there weren't these third-party organisations, these off-site companies. They ease the strain on the main car parks and they create competition, which means that you get lower prices. Generally, they are a good thing, but there are some rogue traders out there, as we found.
So how are these supposed to work? So unlike airport parking, the real super official luxury one, I suppose, is you turn up and it's basically a multi-storey attached to the airport. And then you've got off-site parking where you might leave your car and get on a bus. This is particularly meet and greet, right?
Yeah, we particularly looked at meet and greet because that's where we had heard about the most problems arising. And in the last few years, because of these price rises, everybody's been trying to cut corners on the least glamorous part of their holiday, which is, of course, parking. So more and more people are using companies that they maybe wouldn't have used before. And we've had lots and lots of complaints about poor service and even, some criminal activity. And it's not just us. Heathrow Airport, when we approached them, the police at Heathrow Airport told us they'd had 300 meet and greet complaints in the last 2 years. And there was quite a high-profile case recently of a fraudster who was operating out of Manchester Airport, who was just taking people's cars and leaving them in a muddy field or leaving them on residential streets, and he was jailed. So it's been a big problem, and I think the real problem here is that it's so easy to pick a dud. These rogue companies appear high up on Google. They're sold by reputable-looking comparison sites. They look perfectly credible. And they claim to have 5-star reviews. So you have to be so careful.
Because it's a real opportunity for anyone really to set up one of these companies. You don't need to have a real business address. No one's coming to visit you. How it works is essentially valet parking, isn't it? You meet somebody pre-arranged at the airport. They pick up your keys and your car and they take it away, and then they come back. And, as far as you're concerned as an average, tourist, you just don't know where your car goes. You might see in the literature that it's kept safe, but really it just disappears and then it comes back to you.
Yeah, exactly right. And if you've done your due diligence, you'll have looked on the website and it will say this car will be stored in a secure car park with CCTV and 24-hour security. The trouble is that the rogue ones say that as well. So it's very difficult to tell.
So what did you decide to do to try and get to the bottom of what's actually going on here?
Well, I think it would be useful to maybe tell you a bit about some of the complaints that we'd had already. So we were shocked by the response. When we asked which readers to tell us about the problems they'd had with meet and greet, for some of them it was just irritations. They'd turned up and the guy who was supposed to meet them at the terminal to take their keys and take the car away just wasn't there. Or when they got back from their holiday, it was dark, they just wanted to get home. They had to wait ages for the car to turn up.
So not pleasant.
Not pleasant.
Inconvenient, but not...
Quite annoying.
Not the end of the world.
Yeah, but for others, it was much more serious. So they missed their flight because the chauffeur didn't arrive. Nobody would answer the phone. Their car was coming back covered in mud with loads of extra miles on the clock and no explanation. We had one person tell us they even bought them the wrong car when they got back from their holiday. It's a totally different car.
And not an upgrade.
Not an upgrade, unfortunately not, no. We had one lady tell us that because their flight was delayed and it was now late, they got in at about midnight, and the parking company said that they couldn't have their car again until 6 a.m. the next morning. So either her and her family could sleep on the airport floor for the night and wait for the car, or they could go and collect the car themselves, which they did, as they got an expensive taxi from Heathrow to what turned out to be a residential address.
Wow.
And they went and banged on the door, and this rather sleepy driver kind of opened the door, looked annoyed, handed them their keys, and off they went. That's not really what you're expecting, is it, when you're handing over your car and paying quite a lot of money?
It's not the kind of valet parking that you imagine from like a James Bond film. You fling a guy in a waistcoat your keys and then he looks after it and brings it back with mints in the tray.
Yeah. But I think the worst ones were where there were reports of damage to the car. So we had a case study, Margaret Smith, who told us about her car being returned with a smashed windscreen. So it was totally smashed. It was undrivable. The driver who brought it to her didn't care. He said, can't help you at all. It's your problem. You'll have to claim on your insurance. So Margaret and her toddler and her husband had to book into a hotel for the night and arrange to sort it all out themselves the next day to get a full replacement. The whole thing cost them, over £200. And it's not the way that you want to end your holiday, is it?
That's gutting because it is a cost. There's loads of costs there. But just when you are tired and you are cold, having come back into the country, exhausted, you just want to get in that car and get home.
Yeah.
So to have that fall apart is really going to be disappointing.
Absolutely. So when we were hearing these kind of complaints, we knew we had to investigate this, really. So what we did was earlier this summer, we booked parking with 3 of the companies that were prominent on search engines, but also that we'd seen lots of complaints about. So there was Mayfair Parking, there was Quick Park, and there was Gatwick Airport Spaces Limited.
So all fairly generic sounding car parking companies, and it's not finding these people in a pub somewhere or on a business card.
And in the case of Gatwick Airport Spaces Limited, I mean, that really sounds like it's something to do with the airport. You're kind of being duped there. It's nothing to do with the airport, but it sounds like it is. So to put these 3 to the test, we had 3 Range Rovers that we hired. We put trackers inside them so we could follow what they were doing. And we then very nervously left them with these 3 companies who took them off to park them, allegedly in secure compounds. And we monitored their speed and their location right here at Which HQ.
So did you have to basically tell these guys, look, we're going off on holiday, you drive up as if you are about to fly off to Malaga, but then really you were just coming back to London to just see where this car's going?
Yeah, exactly right. We told them to dress as though they were going on holiday, to have suitcases.
Wow.
So they were in shorts and T-shirt, hats on, to all intents and purposes, ready to go on their holiday.
And you left the cars in a very particular condition. You took photos of everything, I guess, and left some kind of, I suppose, temptations in there as well, right?
We did. We wanted to make the cars appear sort of exactly as a consumer might leave them. So we left some sweets in the glove box. There was a bottle of water in the driver's door, and we left a little bit of loose change as well in the central sort of cubby hole underneath the handbrake.
What did you find?
Well, unsurprisingly, I say unsurprisingly, I was actually shocked by this.
Yeah.
All of the money had gone. All of it.
Wow.
And it wasn't a lot of money. You know, it was in the biggest amount that we left in there was £4.50. But I don't think that's the point, really. I think why this is so shocking is because it shows just the contemptuous attitude of these drivers. They think they can do what they want, and they know that they'll get away with it. So there's no chance of them getting reprimanded, even though they're operating a business at one of the UK's biggest, busiest airports. It's quite shocking, really.
It's galling. It doesn't seem like it's worth it to take £4.50 for the sake of your business.
Exactly right. And they ate our sweets.
Oh.
Which we were not happy about. And that bottle of water that was in the driver's door, it was brand new. It had been opened. The guy had taken a swig from it, closed it up, put it back in the door, and given us back the car. So
wow.
It's the gall of it, really, isn't it?
It is the gall. You've not left them like, it's not an Uber that you've set up for them. This is someone's personal car.
Yeah.
And they might have been looking forward to that water when
They
got
might.
back. So besides what might be a little bit of petty theft, you were tracking them on GPS.
Yeah.
What did you notice as they were leaving these airports?
So none of them was really parked in an ideal spot. In the best case scenario, it was at least in a site with CCTV, which was the Mayfair parking one. But it was at the end of a dirt track, and, you know, we went to visit. There was rubbish piled up at the sides of this track. It wasn't a very nice area. And we were still able to just drive straight in. We wandered around. We looked at our car. Nobody approached us. Nobody said anything.
So you were able to visit your cars
We went to see it, yeah.
while parked.
Yeah, yeah.
Which you were the guys who had access to those cars. Kind of means that anyone could do that.
Exactly right. There were people milling around there, but nobody approached us. And that was the best case. In another one, it was left in a sort of industrial wasteland behind a petrol station.
Nice.
There were at least locks on the gates, so we couldn't get in. And then the third one, Quick Park, that was the worst. So the website claimed it would be in a secure site with something called Parkmark accreditation.
And what is Parkmark?
Well, that basically means that it's been assessed by the police. Some specially trained officers have gone along and said, you need to bring this up to standard. They will have said what they need to do to bring it up to standard. So it's been assessed and it's passed. This one wasn't a Parkmark site at all because, again, we visited. It wasn't even a car park. It was basically left in the back garden of an abandoned rectory.
Wow. So the case with all of these is they weren't anywhere near what you'd expect from a professional parking situation. Like, that's not where your car goes off on its own little holiday and you expect it to be in a row of tarmac with CCTV, locked gates and a security guard wandering around.
Yeah, exactly. There was none of that. And, you know, the cars weren't treated with much respect either. We caught two of the companies driving our cars way over the speed limit. Mayfair Parking, which it only drove our car 10 miles in the time that it had it, we caught it speeding on 4 different occasions.
That's impressive.
And Quick Park, true to its name, it drove our Range Rover down the A4 at nearly 70 in a 50 zone. Which, you know, if that had been caught, luckily it wasn't caught by a traffic camera, but if it had, we would have been getting a ticket, a maximum penalty of up to 6 points, or temporary disqualification.
It boggles the mind just why bother as a company to put in those risks? Well, what do these companies say and how did they respond when you put this to them?
So 2 of them didn't respond at all. Quick Park and Gatwick Airport parking spaces just didn't reply, which is unusual. You know, when normally in an investigation like this, they'll come back and say, oh, we're so sorry, or they'll deny it, but they just didn't reply at all. And Mayfair Parking did finally reply, but it was only after the story had been published, so it was out there. And they told Which that they strongly disagree with the findings and asserted that it operates in a professional manner. It apologised if money was stolen from the car and said it was prepared to take appropriate action and return anything that was stolen on provision of further evidence. It also noted that the car was stored in a BPA accredited site, picked up promptly and returned safely.
Well, that sounds all not very satisfactory. Let's go to a break now, and when we come back, let's try and get to the bottom of how these companies are getting away with it and how we can fix the situation, and also how you as a consumer can avoid this happening to you. We'll be back shortly.
Life can get hectic when you start a family, but Which can help you make confident decisions from improving your home to financial planning. We'll make sure you're prepared. Whether you're looking to reduce your household bills, seeking advice around your child's health, or want to find our best buys for your new home, Which has got you covered. Use our expert advice to make the right choices for you and your growing family by visiting which.co.uk/growing family. That's where you'll find everything you need to make confident decisions and have peace of mind that all the advice you're getting is 100% independent. So to find out more, just head to which.co.uk/growing family.
Welcome back to Get Answers. This is just one of the podcasts that Which produces, and if you're enjoying it, you'll probably want to listen to one of the other ones from our team, including Which Money, our weekly money podcast, which drops every Friday into the Which Money feed. And there we tackle some of the biggest questions in finance with the help of our top team of journalists. And then there's also Which Shorts, where you can listen to some of our most popular magazine articles absolutely for free, read by some very sultry voices. To find them and subscribe, just search for Which Money and Which Shorts, wherever you're listening to this podcast. Right, Guy, back to your investigation. What did the British Parking Association say when you reported these firms to them? You mentioned the BPA earlier. They're essentially the accreditor of all these.
They told us that they weren't surprised at all by our findings and that what we'd uncovered was really the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
So they recognised this is a big problem, and it's a problem that no one's really got a handle on. No one's got it under control. There are two parts to the problem, really. There's two issues. The first is just how easy it is to be duped by these companies online. So there really needs to be better regulation there. In fairness, when we reported the sites to Google, it did act pretty quickly to remove any ads, and it suspended the accounts of these companies.
These are dodgy companies that are paying big money to places like Google to get up in the search rankings. What did Google say when you put this to them?
They said, protecting users is our top priority, and we have strict ads policies that govern the types of ads and advertisers we allow on our platforms. We enforce our policies vigorously, and the ads flagged to us have been removed and the accounts suspended. We continue to invest significant resources to stop bad actors, and we are constantly evaluating and updating our policies and improving our technology to keep users safe.
So it's funny, we often end up in this same topic where we cover these things on Get Answers of paid for adverts using social media through the big search sites. It's something that we've campaigned for a lot with the Online Safety Act. So watch this space on what changes in that world where there are, I think, some dodgy actors getting enabled by these systems. But it's interesting that it comes up even when you're talking about car parks.
And I think the other problem is just the lack of regulation.
Right.
These companies aren't being effectively caught. They're not being punished. The airports told us they can't do anything. As long as these companies don't break their bylaws, the airport bylaws, then there's nothing they can do. The police told us that they do carry out operations against rogue traders, but they're hamstrung by this lack of regulation. And the fact that as soon as they stop one operation, there's another 3 or 4 to pop up in its place. And so the only real way that we can stop these companies is if we, as consumers, just stop using them. And that's something that the British Parking Authority has been working on. So it has launched this new accreditation scheme called AMGO, which is Approved Meet and Greet Operators. And it hopes that by approving the good ones, we're going to eventually stamp out the unscrupulous ones because people just won't use them if they don't have this accreditation. We have high hopes for that scheme, but it is still very much in its infancy and it hasn't yet been taken up by all the airports and it's not yet working as it should. But keep an eye on that one.
It seems a bit slow to catch up. The meet and greet parking, it's not an entirely new phenomenon, even if it is more popular. And an accreditation scheme is a really fantastic way for people to be able to go, right, I will go with this parking company because it has been checked over and they won't last very long with that accreditation if they fail. And it's just a shame it's taken this long, but it's good that it exists. And I guess if you are someone who's at home thinking, oh, gosh, I don't know whether I can trust this parking company, having your own policy of only using those AMGO approved parking companies would probably be a good place to start.
Yeah, once that scheme's running, I would totally agree. In the meantime, of course, you can look at our reviews on which.co.uk, and we have assessed all of the best parking companies. We've got 4 Which recommended providers for airport parking. And all of those Which recommended providers, they're not just the ones that you've told us are the best. They're ones that only use Parkmark accredited sites. Now, that's not that easy for a consumer to find out. You can look at a particular car park and see if that car park is accredited, but what you can't see as a consumer is whether the company that's offering the meet and greet is taking it to that accredited site. So that's the difference. That's what AMGO is trying to sort out. But at the moment, we are only recommending sites or providers that use Parkmark car parks.
And who were those recommended providers?
So if you're specifically looking for meet and greet, you can trust APH, who are a big company. They operate out of Gatwick and Manchester airports. And also I Love Meet and Greet, which has even more airports on its books. They're both Which recommended providers. There are also 2 park and ride operations that we recommend. Sentinel at Leeds Bradford Airport and Cophall Parking at Gatwick Airport.
That is really good to know. And it's a complicated scene, the airport parking market at the moment, I suppose, because you would be forgiven for thinking that the official on-site airport parking is always going to be the most expensive option and maybe the tippity-top best. But actually, in these surveys and in your research, it's often the case that you shouldn't go into booking parking assuming that that is always going to be the best and most expensive option.
No. Generally, the airport parking official sites are the most expensive. And that's what kind of tempts people away from the official sites. But that's not to say that there are lots of unofficial sites that do a great job. And our survey really showed that, in a lot of the airports, your best option, according to our customer scores, is to go off-site. Not only will it be cheaper, but you'll get a much better experience.
You are going to have these weird situations where you basically have to shop around for each airport and really do your research.
Yeah, you do. And fortunately, we've got all of that information at which.co.uk. We can tell you which provider is best at each airport. We can give you an idea of the prices and we can tell you which ones we recommend.
So any other tips for people when they are booking their parking? If, we don't want to put people off now, maybe they'll at least get public transport to the airport. But if you are wanting to leave your car somewhere while you're on holiday, are there any tips that you would also give to people?
Yeah, I think just be very careful when you're booking. Do your due diligence. Make sure you cross-reference those reviews. So don't just see one review and think that's definitely right. Use the Which website, use Trustpilot. Make sure you've sort of cross-referenced it and you're happy with your choice. Absolutely don't be scared to use these third-party companies because, as I say, a lot of them are fantastic and a lot of them are better than the official on-site ones. And it's not like we don't hear problems with the on-site ones as well. There are occasionally problems, but generally it's off-site where you'll find these real rogues. But if you can avoid those, you are likely to find cheaper and often better parking outside the airport boundary.
Well, that is an excuse, if anything, to take a holiday. I think, if only I could just justify it as I'm doing this research on some good parking companies.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Guy, for joining us. And thank you for this piece. I assume you're going to keep an eye on this in the future and keep track of some of these companies to see if there's more popping up and if this scheme is actually making a difference.
Yeah, we absolutely will be keeping an eye on the scheme, as you say. It would be great to see that fully up and running. And we'll continue to assess airport car parks and make sure we're telling people which are the best ones.
So, Guy, what have Which travel subscribers got to look forward to in the next issue?
Well, the next issue is our January issue. So we've got a big feature on where to go in 2025. We're also heading to Florida. I've just got back from Malta, which I'll be telling you all about Hidden Malta. We're doing the Alps by Eurostar. And we've also got our huge survey on the best and worst holiday companies.
Very exciting. Thanks very much, Guy.
Thanks.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. And for more great travel news and advice from Guy and his team, as well as the benefits of a Which travel membership, you can find out more by heading to which.co.uk and clicking on Travel. Or, if you want that full Which membership, you can get 50% off right now. To do that, you just need to visit which.co.uk/podcast offer. And we'll put a link to that in the description for today's episode. A reminder then that rather than having to wait 2 weeks for your next episode, I'll be back on Monday to find out even more about one of our exclusive investigations. And if you've got a question or issue you'd like us to look into, email us on podcast@which.co.uk. This episode was presented by me, Harry Kind, produced by James Rowe and Rob Lilly-Jones, and edited by Eric Breer. And thanks again to Guy Hobbs for joining us. We'll be back soon. Bye-bye.
Next time you need to get work done on your home, or your car, or your garden, make sure you choose a trader you can trust. And don't just choose any trader, choose a Which trusted trader. Our trading standards professionals only endorse traders who've passed our rigorous assessment that includes credit reports, customer satisfaction surveys, reference checks, and interviews. When we say a trader's good enough to display our Which trusted trader logo, you can trust us. But don't take our word for it. Search Which Trusted Traders online to see our directory of around 4,000 traders. Every customer review you read there is verified genuine by our moderators, so you can choose with confidence. To find a local trader you can trust, search Which Trusted Traders or go to which.co.uk/traders. That's which.co.uk/traders. Everybody needs a trader they can trust.